Well, greetings vinyl community and welcome to VC Friday. And as you might guess from the setting, we will be setting sail on the topographic oceans later in this video, but I'll save that for last. I want to begin by talking about the singer-songwriter Amethyst Kiah and her most recent album from 2024, Still and Bright. I'm assuming that the plus sign is pronounced and. Maybe it's still plus bright. Maybe it's a mathematical equation. Amethyst Kiah describes her music as Southern Gothic folk rock. And I discovered her through YouTube videos that were recommended to me through the various algorithms. And these tended to be more rootsy acoustic performances. More bluesy with a bluegrass edge. Amethyst Kiah is from Tennessee and uses her Appalachian roots as a strong touch point for her music. This album is somewhat different from the performances I saw on YouTube. It's much more electric rock in orientation. There's still the rootsy influence there. There are songs featuring Amethyst Kiah's banjo alongside fiddle and mandolin, but still in a basically rocking setting. Being a queer black woman with a deep voice and interesting hair, Amethyst Kiah is bound to draw comparisons to Joan Armatrading, and there is very much an influence of Joan Armatrading in the songwriting, but Amethyst hits harder. The songs are very intense. Lyrically, she deals with trauma from her mother having committed suicide when Amethyst was 18. There is imagery from her science fiction fandom and just some very powerfully delivered and powerfully stated sentiments, such as the opening, "When I was a child, I wanted to play God and destroy the world." This album is Amethyst Kiah's most recent from 2024, and there are different variants. This is the one on green vinyl. So a very strong and powerful album. Still not exactly what first drew me to her. I can't help wishing to some extent that there was a bit more wood and a bit more air to this album. Instead, it's got a lot more electricity, but great stuff, so well worth a listen. And Amethyst spells her name Amythyst, so not quite like the gem, but it's a gem of an album.
My hands were covered with black slime, my lungs were choked with dirty rhyme. 3 a.m. right on time, the bell tolled, I was terrified. I lay the body in that ground, a shallow grave, I don't have time now. God damn it, this better work. I'm on my knees before the morning live, cold black stone covered in hieroglyphs. God damn it, this better work. God damn it, this better work.
A few weeks ago, I showed some albums on the Firehouse 12 label that all featured Mary Halverson on guitar and Tomas Fujiwara on drums. Well, here's another album, not on the Firehouse 12 album, but it does feature both of those musicians, and it is the brand new album from the Tomeka Reid Quartet. Tomeka Reid is a cellist, and she is joined by Mary Halverson on guitar, Tomas Fujiwara on drums, and Jason Robke on bass. And this is titled Dance, Skip, Hop, just released, and this is pressed on what is described as cello case green vinyl. So I haven't seen Tomeka Reid's cello case, but presumably it's this shade. The music is free jazz, but with a more accessible bent. To me, the composed heads of the pieces have a kind of Thelonious Monk feel, so there's definitely something to relate to if you're not a fan of really frantic, high-energy, screeching free jazz. This is not. Tomeka Reid mostly plays the cello plucked rather than bowed, although she uses both techniques here. I'd say it's probably more like 75% plucked, which really causes a blend with the guitar and the upright bass being the other tuned instruments in the ensemble. And something that really makes me smile about this album is that the last track is titled Silver Spring Fig Tree. And that's a reference to Mr. Steve Feigenbaum, the esteemed and eminent power behind Wayside Music and Cuneiform Records. Based in Silver Spring, Maryland, Tomeka Reid was born in Washington, D.C. and grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland, and previously recorded for the Cuneiform label. So this is the 2019 album, Old New, by the same personnel on the new album. Now, Steve Feigenbaum's Wayside Music is, for me, the top source for experimental music by mail order, and his Cuneiform label has just been incredible in the enormous catalog of quality outside music that it has amassed over the years. And Mr. Feigenbaum's surname translates to fig tree, so he is the Silver Spring Fig Tree. And I was really pleased to see the nod to him on this album. Next up, an album of electronic music from 1980 by Patrick Gleason, a veteran of Herbie Hancock's band during his early fusion period with the Sextant group. This is Rainbow Delta on the PVC label from 1980. The album consists of two side-long suites, Rainbow Delta and Draconian Measures. The first side being compositions from 1978 through 1979. The second side being described as pieces where he would take a single measure of music and store it in memory of a computer and manipulate and edit it with a Z80 microprocessor. And that sounds like it's going to be very kind of random and chance-oriented, but it's actually much more musical than Gleason's description makes it sound. In 1977, in this magazine, Synapse magazine devoted to electronic music, Patrick Gleason wrote a lengthy review of an album called Machines by Lem, and it turned into a kind of manifesto for electronic musicians. It went from being a review to a rant to a manifesto. And his previous albums under his own name had been kind of pop electronic albums. He'd done a realization of Holst's Planets, so something in the Tomita and Wendy Carlos vein of doing synthesized versions of classical music, and then he'd done a realization of music from Star Wars. So he ends this review with saying, Patrick Gleason's Star Wars is my last popular album. From here on in, it is sheer madness, cloud forests, and dying light. So this was the next album that he produced after that. It was a couple of years after that review was published, but it finally came out, and it's not exactly rainforests and dying light. I think there's a really strong resemblance to Tangerine Dream in a lot of the music here. So something that's a bit more accessible than he was promising. There are some pretty followable, steady rhythms going on. Some very amusing titles, Frank Stella by Starlight, Unacceptable Dance Styles, Ravel Goes to Germany, and maybe a nod to Tomita in Hobbits Are Dancing. I found that album here in town at Vinyl Solution, along with this one, the music of Erik Satie, performed by Aldo Ciccolini. This is volume 4 in the series of Satie's complete solo piano music played by Ciccolini, released on Angel Records. This is from 1970, and all the 6 volumes used variations on this famous Picasso sketch of Satie. Here we've got it in rainbow colors on black, reminiscent of that thing we used to do as kids when you'd put different colors on a piece of paper with crayon and then smear black crayon over the whole thing and then draw by scraping off the black layer. Probably the second most famous piece of music by Satie, or group of pieces, after the famous Trois Gymnopédies, are the Trois Gnossiennes, the 3 Gnossiennes. Nobody knows exactly what a Gnossienne is. It may have something to do with Knossos in Greece, in Crete, because there's like an ancient Grecian influence in the music. It could have something to do with Gnosticism, because Satie had the influence of mystical traditions and got involved in Rosicrucianism, which is highly reflected in this album. But the original 3 Gnossiennes, of course, are on the volume 1 from this series, but this volume begins with the 4th, 5th, and 6th Gnossiennes, which were posthumous discoveries, not published until the 1960s. So some very beautiful music, very much in the tradition of Satie's most approachable sounds. Another posthumous piece follows the 4th, 5th, and 6th Gnossiennes, and that is the Nouvelle Pièce Froide, or New Cold Pieces. And then the remainder of the album is made up of pieces that Satie wrote while under the spell of Rosicrucianism, where the music is very stark and not a lot of melodies, a lot of very chordal statements. And those pieces are the Première Pensée et Sonnerie de la Rose-Croix, or First Thought and Fanfare for the Rosy Cross, Deux Rêveries Nocturnes, 2 Nocturnal Reveries, Petite Ouverture à Danser, 4 Préludes, 4 Preludes, Les Fils des Étoiles, or the Son of the Stars. See, if you're not content with hearing me stumble all over my tongue in English, I get to do it in French too. And finally, here's the big one. I've just received the just released Super Deluxe edition of Tales from Topographic Oceans, the magnificent 1973 release by Yes. This is in keeping with this album's reputation for prog rock excess, a 12 CD set, plus 2 LPs, plus a Blu-ray. So altogether, a 15-disc set devoted to one album. And except for a couple of songs from the Close to the Edge album that are included in the live performance section, this album is entirely devoted to, well, I should say these 15 discs are entirely devoted to 4 songs. Now, Tales from Topographic Oceans is obviously a very special album to me. I try to avoid owning more than one vinyl copy of the same album. Clearly, I've made an exception in the case of Tales from Topographic Oceans. For a talk about the music, if you go back, I did back in 2020 a deep dive into Tales from Topographic Oceans. So if you go back to my video numbered 67, you'll find that. Also, since it was 2020, you'll see me with my COVID hair growing out. I do remember back in 1973, I just happened to tune in to a radio broadcast premiering the album, which had not yet been released in America. So somebody on the radio was playing an advance copy. I did not know it was coming out. I just turned on this particular radio station after I'd been listening to something else, and they were in the middle of something. This is Yes. This is new Yes. And I listened to it, and it just kept going. And it kept going. This is Long Piece by Yes. And when it ended, the disc jockey started reading from the liner notes, the Indian scriptural inspiration for the music, and then went on to the next piece. So wow, this was a very long, epic, and incredibly good piece of music that I was hearing. So when it finally became available to the public, of course, I scooped up a British copy, which is this very one. It wasn't released right away in the USA, so we got British imports first. And that quickly became not only my favorite Yes album, but an absolute Desert Island disc. This is the one. This is the Desert Island disc. So as far as vinyl, it does come in these nice sleeves, and we get reproductions of the original, very colorful art, really nicely done. I have not listened to the entirety of the vinyl. I've not gotten all the way through this set. I've barely heard half of the content. I don't think I even have made it to the halfway point because there's a lot of content here. But what do we have on the 12 CDs? It starts out with the original album, and that's what we get on the vinyl, the original album as it was released in 1973. So discs, CDs 1 and 2 are devoted to the original double LP remastered. Discs 3 and 4 are a brand new remix by Steven Wilson, and he has done an amazing job. It sounds incredible. He's done some extraordinary things with the dynamics, the climax of the album, which has always sounded a bit understated, because this album doesn't really seem to come to a big crashing ending, but it kind of does when Steven Wilson gets a hold of it. It's very serene and floating sort of statement at the end of this album, but it does have quite a build-up. The drums have extraordinary presence. He's beefed up the bass some. What he has not done is made it a Rick Wakeman-oriented album. Rick Wakeman always had a problem with this album and didn't really contribute as much as he might have. There's one really big showcase for Rick Wakeman in the form of a Moog solo in the first movement. After that, he's more concerned with backing, with providing atmospheres and tone colors. There's one bit that I really don't care for what Steven Wilson did, and that's right at the beginning of side 3, so that's probably the pickiest of nits that I have to go to, this one specific space. What did I say about stumbling over my tongue? To find something that doesn't really strike me as right about the remixed version. But in general, great thing. Well worth the cost of the album to hear this new take on some long familiar old musical friends. The next 2 discs are instrumental mixes. So it's basically the same as discs 3 and 4, the Steven Wilson 2026 remix, but with the vocals stripped off. So you can hear some things that are obscured while you're normally listening to the sung melodies. And you do hear faint echoes here and there of John Anderson's voice. It hasn't been quite entirely scraped away, and that just makes it all the sweeter. So that's really, to me, more entertaining than you would think it would be. After that, it starts getting into what are billed as the rarities, and they start off with 5 single edits. These, to me, are completely pointless and extraneous. There were no singles released from this album anywhere in the world. The single edits were created specifically to be space-filling rarities on a previous deluxe edition of the album, which is over here. And, it is nice because when you hear them the song parts in isolation, they're still very familiar, very beautiful, but it really doesn't need to be there. It might have been fun if they had actually included vinyl singles using those edits. That, of course, would have raised the price enormously, so probably just as well they didn't do that. After that, we get a whole series of rehearsal versions and rough mixes and run-throughs. The same songs being worked on. Some of them are really pretty close to the final results. Others, especially the version of The Ancient, which is described as In Progress 2, very different, very not quite nailed down. While the music is all there, the approach to it is not. So it all sounds very tentative, and it's clearly not as good as what they came up with, but fascinating from a scholarship point of view to hear how it started before they really turned it into the epic. After 3 discs of the rarities, we get live stuff. So, live at Free Trade Hall, Manchester, England in '73, we have versions of The Remembering and the Ancient. That's sides 2 and 3 from the album. Live at Capitol Theatre, Cardiff, Wales, December 1st, 1973, live versions of The Ancient and Ritual, so sides 3 and 4. And then 2 discs devoted to live at Hallenstadion Zurich in Switzerland, April 21st, 1974. So much later, after they'd been to America and toured this album. And here we get And You and I and Close to the Edge. So the only songs that are not the 4 Tales from Topographic Oceans epics on this deluxe set, followed by The Revealing Science of God, The Ancient, and Ritual. So sides 1, 3, and 4. During the American tour, they stopped performing side 2. So, unfortunately, some of these live performances are not, showing the wrong thing there, are not complete versions. They have early fade-outs or they have late fade-ins. And I have not gotten to listen to those sections yet. And then there's the Blu-ray disc, finally, which contains the Dolby Atmos mix. I don't have a Dolby Atmos setup, but I do have 5.1, so I will be able to listen to the surround mix. I haven't heard it yet. And the Blu-ray also contains the various other mixes of the album that appear elsewhere on the CD set. So the box is not technically a box, it's a book format. We get the exterior cover on the exterior, the famous Roger Dean artwork, and then inside we get the Blu-ray nestled in its little slots and some individual nests for the various CDs. And there is, of course, a booklet full of wonderful photographs and liner notes by Sid Schwartz, a nice essay with illustrations, and also a reproduction of the gatefold interior with the lyrics. This is re-typeset, so they took the opportunity to correct a typo on the original album. They had, because the pieces are all based on these Hindu scriptures, they had the name of one of the scriptures completely wrong, so that's corrected here. They did kind of change the artwork. These blue Roger Dean borders around these nature photos, they used to be red, which was more striking. I have no idea why they would change that, but there you go. Very nice little souvenir of the recording and touring of Tales from Topographic Oceans. And assuming I can get away with a needle drop, I want to highlight a moment from this album that really highlights the wonderful vocal harmony of John Anderson, Chris Squire, and Steve Howe that is such a trademark of classic Yes.
What happened to this song that we once knew so well? Signed promise for moments caught within the spell. I must have waited all my life for this.
So that's VC Friday for this week, done and dusted. Thanks very much for watching. Be well. I'll be back next week with something completely different. So until then, bye-bye for now.